The US Capitol building is in lockdown right now. Supporters of President Trump have converged on Washington to try to overturn the election results from last November. Security barricades have apparently been breached outside the Capitol building. Police, we are told, have fired some tear gas at protesters, and the doors of the Senate chamber have been closed and locked. It was inside the Senate where they were going to ratify that election result. And the Vice President, Mike Pence, who presides over the Senate, has apparently been escorted to a secure location. Other senators and congressmen and women are apparently sheltering in their offices. The protesters are trying to stop Congress from formally approving President-elect Joe Biden's victory back in November's election. And in the last few minutes, President Trump has tweeted that they should stay peaceful. Of course, the president did address elements of that crowd earlier at a rally before some of them anyway, went up the steps of the Capitol building, and the president apparently went back to the White House, but has tweeted that any protest should stay peaceful. Let's get the latest. Let's get you up to speed from the scene. Sky's Washington correspondent Greg Milam is there. And Greg, what I want you to do first of all is just give us the sequence of events, both inside the Capitol building and what has happened with those crowds there, how they got there, why they're there.
Yeah, and you can see those crowds still on the steps of the US Capitol, pretty unprecedented. I've got to say, for those who've watched what goes on in Washington over many years, I think this is quite astonishing what we're seeing inside and outside of the Capitol. But yeah, it all started earlier with many of these people who were down at a rally down near the White House, the other end of the National Mall. Donald Trump there giving a speech again, repeating his claims that the election had been stolen from him. Laying out in an hour-long speech what he said was the evidence, much of which we've heard before and has been dismissed by the courts, of course. But giving that speech and again encouraging those protesters to continue with their protests. Now, when he finished, and in fact during that speech he said he would be with them on this, they began this march, as was always planned, up to the Capitol building, the building you're seeing there. They began that march, and by the time they got here, these first flashes of violence, it appears many of those protesters were intent on getting inside the Capitol building, because inside of there was this joint session of the House of Representatives and the Senate, the two chambers, which was convened to formally certify the result of November's presidential election. And this tension that existed for the Vice President, Mike Pence, and throughout Donald Trump's speech, he continued to put pressure on Mike Pence to do something in that certification process to overturn the election. Now, according to the Constitution, he can't do that. No one expected that Mike Pence really would do that, but Donald Trump continued to pile the pressure on his vice president and certainly ramped up the crowd, I think, to demand more of the vice president in this, what is a ceremonial role. Well, that hearing began. Even before Mike Pence had started speaking, he'd released a text of a letter that he'd sent to members of Congress in which he said he wanted people to air their protests, members of Congress to air their concerns about electoral fraud, for that to be debated, but said that he didn't constitutionally have the right to overturn the election, to do anything other than just accept these votes and move on. So at some point, Mike Pence will announce that Joe Biden has been elected president, Kamala Harris elected vice president. It's a ceremonial moment. We've never taken any notice really of it in previous years. That will happen at some point, but currently that hearing is suspended because of a concern about the safety of those inside. It's reported that some of these protesters have managed to breach the doors of the Capitol building. The building itself has been locked down. Many of the members of Congress inside told to shelter in place, concerns about tear gas and concerns about people getting in who are clearly very angry. The president has tweeted that they should stay peaceful, they should respect law and order, they should respect law enforcement who are trying to protect that building. It came a little late because I think the anger boiled over long before that tweet came, and you can see the scene there, and we've seen images from inside of people continuing that protest, and clearly the anger is very real amongst Donald Trump's supporters, most of them completely peaceful, I've got to say, and we're standing here watching many of them filtering their way out of Washington, but a hard core of them remaining to make these points. And as we've seen in some previous protests in Washington in recent months since November, they have boiled over. Generally, those clashes have been against some of those counter-protesters, those from the other side of the political spectrum here. This one is largely a clash with the Capitol Police, who protect this building, but also a clash with democracy itself, if you like. This is where a democratic process is going on, and they are, many of them, trying to storm that building to put a stop to it.